Hey guys, Level Cap here. Today we're going to be taking a look at Crossout, a free-to-play Mad Max style car building battle game that I absolutely adore. I've made a video on this in the past showing off one of my favorite low-level vehicle builds, and I just can't get enough of this game. I've been streaming the heck out of it lately. It's really, really fun, and the developers, Gaijin, gave me a press key for the game that unlocked all the items in the game, and I was just having an absolute blast building some really high level and crazy vehicles using all the items in the game. So thank you very much, Gaijin, for sponsoring this video. Also, be sure to check the link in the video description to download Crossout. If you use my specific link, you'll also get to choose between either a free car cabin or some free guns for your vehicle at the start. So just a nice little boost if you're just getting into the game. Now, for anyone who's unfamiliar with this game, it's developed by the same people who make War Thunder, which is also an excellent free-to-play game, a company that I feel does the free-to-play model justice, allowing players who spend more money in the game to be match-made against other high skill or high tier players using a skill point or a power score system. So basically, if you build a vehicle in this game that has a ton of high level weapons, whether you earn them or whether you bought them, you're going to be matched against other people who, generally speaking, have high level weapons or high level vehicles. So if you're just starting out with new vehicles and stuff, you're going to be going up against newbie players as well, or low tier vehicles as well. Now, there's a bunch of different game modes based around sort of a TDM style format for multiplayer. There's also PvE or co-op PvE where you do raids, and then they're also playing around with the new Battle Royale format, which looks pretty cool, although I haven't tested it out yet. The game is still technically listed as being in open beta, although to me it felt incredibly solid. I didn't crash a single time I was playing the game, and they're coming out with new content, new DLC expansions for it that involve new factions, new weapons, new styles of playing. One of the latest one is the Firestarters faction that allows you to equip flamethrowers and crazy looking shotguns and harpoon cables that can like harpoon your enemies in. So they're sort of expanding the strategy and the things you can bring into the game. At low tier or low skill, you'll generally see some basic builds, but once you get up to higher level, higher power score builds, people start using some pretty crazy stuff. So predicting what you're going to go up against can be a bit difficult, and that's sort of the fun of the game. You never really know what you're about to run into. For example, here I'm testing out kind of a silly build using these big robot spider legs and two absolutely massive chain guns that are mounted on this vehicle. I really love the machine guns in the game. They're a lot of fun for me, and so this is like one of the highest level fully automatic weapons in the game that you can get, and I'm just carrying it around on these giant robot legs and dishing out a huge amount of damage. It's fun to experiment with different builds. Ultimately, I don't really know how effective this build is, but I had some really fun and engaging rounds with it. And again, a lot of it does come down to skill. When you use transport methods like legs or hover jets or stuff like that, you get added movement abilities, like the ability to strafe left and right, which is kind of cool, something you don't get with the traditional wheels. Now, of course, a huge element of this game is actually building your vehicle, and build strategy is key. Understanding how damage works, how components withstand damage or mitigate damage or have pass-through effects where bullets will pass through certain structures on your vehicles allows you to build the most effective vehicle and sort of fine-tune it over many trial and error rounds of fighting the enemy. And this vehicle here is basically a modification of a vehicle I showed off in my previous video, where I really get much more into the building strategies of how to why this vehicle made so much sense at this power score level. And so I've modified it a little bit further here in this video, added a few extra things onto it, but this again is still one of my favorite low tier vehicles to use. It was one of the most effective vehicles in the game, and I was able to consistently perform extremely well using this specific loadout in just about any situation. I like vehicles that give me a good amount of mobility, but it is also fun playing with slower, heavier hitting vehicles as well. You really can kind of mess around with whatever playstyle you want, and the better you get at building, the more effective you will be in game. Also, the better you get at building, the more familiar you become with different vehicle components. And knowing vehicle components is key to winning over your opponents. Like, for example, taking out certain weapons first is a very good strategy. A lot of players say go for the weapons, then the wheels, then the overall vehicle health. Because if you take out the weapons, generally speaking, they can't hurt you unless they activate their self-destruct sequence and go in for a ram, which does actually happen quite a bit. But if you see an enemy with a really strong cannon that you know is going to take a lot of shots to take out, or maybe they have it well armored or well defended, that's a big part of this game, is armoring up your weapons and putting good cover for them. It might make more sense to go for their turning wheels at the start, so they can't turn quickly and get sights on you. So if you know they got a slow moving cannon that won't be able to track you as you drive around, that might make a lot more sense, going for the mobility. Or maybe they've got an exposed reactor on the back of their vehicle. Reactors give your vehicles more power, allowing you to mount more weapons and stuff, but usually when they get taken out and explode, they do a huge amount of damage to surrounding components. So you can actually sometimes one-shot a vehicle if you hit an exposed reactor. And so knowing all those components and the build styles and stuff like that will allow you to pinpoint weak spots on your enemies. Now, the vehicle build system has a surprising amount of flexibility. Here I've designed something to perform more like a motorcycle. The game wasn't really designed for this, but I can still design a vehicle that does perform a bit more like a motorcycle. I wouldn't necessarily recommend this to everyone, but it is fun knowing that you can get really, really creative with the way you build. Here I've added a few spikes on the front for added ramming damage, and then I've got 2 front-mounted shotguns. I went for my opponent's weapon first, and now all he can really do is run away or try and self-destruct on me, but he's not getting that self-destruct off. Then it can also be fun to take some of your high-tier weapons or high-level weapons and say, how can I get these into low-skill games? Well, if I strip every component of my vehicle, all the added elements, and just stick one giant weapon on the vehicle, can I bring it into a low-skill game? And that's what I'm doing here. I've got this huge chain gun on the vehicle, and it actually pushes my vehicle backwards, so I have to kind of compensate a little bit with the gas, or if I shoot it in the opposite direction that I'm driving, it'll accelerate me incredibly. So the weapons have a huge amount of physics to them. You have to actually have vehicle weight to withstand the firepower of some of the high-level cannons. I really think one of the most fun aspects of this game is just experimenting with crazy new ideas, and there's some absolutely insane stuff out there that people let you download. There's a little tab in the game menu called Exhibition, and you can see some of the top voted vehicles that people upload to the database, and if you have the parts to build them, you can just download the design and build somebody else's crazy creation, which can also be a lot of fun and kind of nutty. This vehicle here was my attempt at making something fairly maneuverable with a huge amount of armor that I could also bring into a medium skill game. So this vehicle I think has around 5,000 skill points or so. Got some big cannons on top and just a massive amount of armor that can absorb so much damage. So a lot of people will go up against me and just run into just endless armor plates on the front of this vehicle. And so that was kind of a fun experimentation, and I kept modding this, putting some hydraulic wheels on the front that let me lower down the front of the vehicle so I could get better angles with the cannons on top. There's like so many little things you can do, and I think the tweaking aspect of it is kind of one of the best, where you're just sort of like, okay, well that's really good, but it could be slightly better. What if I swapped out this component with that component? And it kind of becomes an endless customization game, which I absolutely love. Here I decided to see how many tiny machine guns I could fit on this giant robot spider. These are some of the low-level first machine guns you get in the game, but they don't take up too much power, so you can still keep the power score of your vehicle sort of down, and it is fun to bring a whole bunch of tiny little machine guns that just absolutely obliterate your opponents in close quarters. Of course, you're vulnerable and the machine guns die quickly, but there's trade-offs to every single strategy in this game. Here I'm testing out some of the new monster truck tires that were recently added to the game, which are pretty cool. They can take a huge beating and they kind of elevate your vehicle higher off the ground, so that can be beneficial sometimes for shooting down at enemies or seeing over hills or something like that. I just think they look awesome. And it's really fun messing around with some of the high tier stuff and seeing what it can do to your strategy. You can even put giant monster truck wheels on the back end of your car and then small wheels on the front end, and that'll cant the whole thing forward, and it gives you different weapon angles and stuff that you can play around with. This vehicle here is sort of my starting attempts at trying to translate my early tier design into a mid-tier design with higher level weapons and a little bit faster performance. And it's pretty cool. It's fun. It's a bit of a glass cannon, but I love the speed and flanking power and the ability to take out enemy weapons. That's sort of my strategy, is to sort of flank around, stay mobile, kill the enemy guns, and get away before any serious damage can be done. And still, even though I've sunk quite a bit of time into this game already, there's so much left for me to explore and learn and build and try out new strategies and customization, and I'm really excited to do it. I'll probably be streaming a bit more of this game this week. So, as always guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.